want to thank you for being here for another Todd Talk. Take teaching theory and turn it into teaching practice. So, in talking about how do we keep our students focused, one very good tool that you can use in the classroom is what is called a graphic organizer. So, you may be wondering what is a graphic organizer, and it's pretty self explanatory. So, this is a graphic that helps students to organize their thoughts and information and ideas. So why this can help to focus a student is because students may have all these ideas from all over the place, but capturing them on this graphic organizer, this piece of paper, helps to kind of either connect them or helps to bring them together. So it helps students to stay more focused. So I'm going to talk about 10 different graphic organizers that you might want to consider using when it comes to working with your students. The first and most obvious one is known as a T-chart. The T-chart, just like its name, is fairly simple. So it's a T, like you see right here. And so you have two sides to this. So on this one, you might put dogs. And on this one, you might put cats. And this simple T-chart allows you to then compare these two. So you may make a list of attributes and characteristics of a dog. You may make a list of attributes of a cat. This could be like why you should own a dog and why you should own a cat. This could be lots of things. So a T-chart is a fairly simple way to organize thoughts. And so I'll show you an example of a completed T-chart that you see here. You can see this one uses pros and cons. So in this case, it says, what are the advantages of doing this? And it has a list of all the advantages. And then what are the cons or disadvantages? And then there's a list of those. And then the student can look at this and see, here are my advantages, here are my disadvantages, here are my pros, here are my cons. Now, how am I going to make a decision? So it helps them to focus them and to make their decisions. So T-chart is the first type of graphic organizer. The second type of graphic organizer, what's called a brainstorming graphic organizer. So brainstorming by its very name is very chaotic, very unfocused, very disorganized, because students are firing off ideas right and left, here and there, going all over the place. So the question is then, how do you capture all that into one place where students can really focus on it? And so you can use a brainstorming graphic organizer like you see here. This is a fairly basic one. Students simply put the topic in the cloud, and then surrounding this are different ideas that they may have. So they may jot down an idea over an idea one. They may draw something in idea two. They may, bring up something else in idea three. But you can see how it's kind of all connected back to this topic. So it's helping to focus them. So this is a very simple way that you can do this. Here's another brainstorming one right here, which I like this one because it forces students to really think about the who, what, where, when, why, and how. So when they're brainstorming an idea or they're looking at an event in history and they're brainstorming, they need to answer all of these questions. And if you're just having them do this on their own, they may overlook the why, or they may overlook the where, or whatever. But here it helps to organize them and to focus in on something very specific when it comes to this. So these are some examples of brainstorming ones. I'm going to talk about next is what's called a cluster or mind mapping. And what you see here is a really simple cluster. In the center, you have whatever your main topic is. And then there's these offshoots where you're clustering ideas together. So you have something in the middle, and then here's an idea, here's something here, 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 and all the way around. But the important thing is that you see the connection. You see how these connect back, and this is what helps with the focus. Here's a more advanced cluster one. Well, you have main topics, and under those main topics, you have subtopics. And under those subtopics, you'll add details about those subtopics. But again, all the different lines, all the different clustering lead back to the main topic or the main idea, which helps them to focus what it is that they're doing. So these are what are called cluster or mind mapping ones. Another really simple one is what's called a KWL. A KWL is simply a student organizing their plan when it comes to learning something. So the K is what do they know? The W is what do they want to know? So what questions might they have? And then after the fact, they can reflect on what they learned. So what did they learn through this lesson? What did they learn about this particular topic? So this just helps them to, again, organize and focus their thoughts. Another example of a graphic organizer would then be what's called a sequence chart. And a sequence chart, just like its name, goes in sequence. So you can see a fairly basic one right here. So you have what's first, what's second, what's next, then, and last. And so you're going through a clear order. Where do you start? Where do you end? What's in between? So this is a fairly simple version of a sequencing one. So this can be used for specific subject areas. So for example, this graphic organizer helps students to see the sequence of doing a math problem and how to use the PEMDAS sequence. Okay, so you always start with your parentheses. Okay, so that's where you're going to start in this. You're going to end on subtraction, but you're going to walk through the different versions of these different sequences so that you can get a correct answer. If you go out of sequence, you're not going to get the same answer, so it's going to not be correct. So that's why it's important. This is a good way to teach students sequence. Another place that you can use sequence is in the ELA classroom. So when they're sequencing out a story, stories have a clear beginning, middle, and end. And so they could use this Freytag's pyramid, which is like the, when you have the basic conflict, and then you have the rising climax or rising action, and then you have the following climax, and then you have your resolution. And so students could chart this out on here. They could start with wherever the story is starting, and take it as where it's going to go until it gets to its complete end. So this helps them to just focus themselves and to understand what their beginning, their middle, and their ends are going to be. So these are what are called sequence charts. The next one is a learning map. And a learning map is fairly simple, but it just helps you to organize your learning. So you can see this example here. The student is learning about types of rocks. So they start at the very top with just rocks in general. And then they break that down into 3 subtopics: sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic. And under each of those, then they have the characteristics. So what are the characteristics of a sedimentary rock? Well, they are, some examples of these are gypsum and sandstone. When you look under igneous, they're looking at granite and obsidian. When you look under metamorphic, you may have subtopics underneath these. In other words, where are these found, or what are the characteristics of these? What do they look like? But you just following a sequence or following an order of learning. So here's my main topic, and I'm going to get to where here's the details down here. And so this is a learning map that helps you to do that. The next type of a graphic organizer is what's called a problem and solution or problem solving one. So you can see this one right here is fairly basic. You start with the problem at the top. You give students some choices. And then what this graphic organizer allows them to do also is to weigh the pros and cons. So choice 1, what are the good things and bad things about it? Choice 2, and so on and so forth. And then students can come back to this when they go to make their final solution. They can say which one has the best pros or which one has the most cons that we want to avoid. So this just, again, helps them to organize and focus their thoughts when it comes to problem solving. So you can see another example here of problem solving where it's just walking them through what this is going to look like and how they take their problem and get to the solution. How are they getting to that point from point A to point E? What is B, C, and D in between that? And this problem solving graphic organizer helps them to see those things. The next type of graphic organizer I like to talk about is what's called cause and effect one. This is really important for me as a social studies teacher because it's really important to see when something happens, then what is the effect of that? So this event happens and it may seem like it's not that important, but it actually has this ripple effect of all these different things that happen because of that. So for example, if you look at the Civil War, so you have the attack on Fort Sumter, which seems fairly minor when it comes to attacks. No one was killed, no one was hurt and anything. But the effect was you had the South finally make a move on the North. And this is one of the starters of the Civil War. So you have this cause and you have this effect. And so students can chart this out. This is what happened. Okay. And this is the effect that it had. Okay, this is what resulted in this event happening. And this can be done for more than social studies. It can be done in a story. This happens, so what happens as a result? It's going to be looking at science. I've done this, now what's the logical thing that's going to happen after that? So this cause and effect, sequence is really important to understand. And again, it's a graphic organizer that helps them to see this. The next one that I want to talk about, which is the ninth type of graphic organizer, what's called a hierarchy chart. And so a lot of times you'll have a hierarchy of things, which is, in other words, what is the top, and then what's underneath that, and what's underneath that, and so on and so forth. Organizations use this when they put their CEO at the very top, then who reports to the CEO, then who reports to those people, and so on and so forth, till you get down to your boots on the ground worker who's at the very bottom of this hierarchy chart. So this is a blank one right here. You can see it starts at the very top and then parcels itself out where you can see the hierarchy. But here's an example of a hierarchy pyramid in this case. We're looking at an ecosystem specifically. So we see at the top of this are the carnivores. These are the animals that eat other animals. So this is the hawk and the snake and things like that. Then right below the carnivore is the herbivore. These are the plant eaters. And so they eat the plants, and then the carnivores eat these herbivores. Okay. And then, of course, then beneath the herbivores then are the producers or the plants, because they have to be. So each one is a food source to another one. You see the hierarchy. This one's at the top. It eats this animal. This animal eats the plants, and so on and so forth. So you can see how you can put this on a hierarchical pyramid to see what who's at the top of the food pyramid, so to speak, and who's at the bottom of this food pyramid. The last one I want to talk about, which is is a more advanced one, but a very classic type of graphic organizer, is a Venn diagram. So a Venn diagram simply takes these circles, which you see here. You have things that are different on both sides, and then where the circles overlap in the middle is where things are the same. And so let me give you a really simple example. One of the most important questions ever. What's the difference between apples and oranges? We're always comparing apples and oranges, we say. So apples, you're looking at the color here. You're looking at its texture. You're looking at where it grows. Then you have oranges, and it's different. It has a different color. It has a rougher skin. It grows in different places. But both of them are fruits. Both of them can be turned into juices. Both of them grow on trees. So you can see where this overlap is where they have these similarities. And this is what both of them have. So hopefully you saw a graphic organizer you thought that would be of use with students, but I highly recommend using this with students to help focus them, especially gifted students. So gifted students will have so many ideas. It's sometimes hard to rein them in, to get them to focus on one thing, because they're all over the place. And so I like using graphic organizers because it forces them to sit down and take their ideas and put them on this organizer or this piece of paper where they can see it in front of them. And then they can start to focus on what they want to work on.